Welcome, everybody. Glad you all made time to be here this morning. We are very excited to have with us Rabbi Lisa Goldstein, who Mark and I know from the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. As many of you know, I did the rabbinic cohort, the two-year program at IJS. Mark did the lay version of the same thing, the Kivun program. And both of us were deeply changed by our experience with IJS. And one of the reasons it was so is because we had teachers like Rabbi Goldstein, people who walk the walk and are excellent at talking the walk and teaching from a Jewish perspective, a deeply grounded Jewish spirituality. And as you know, we are approaching the Chagim, we're approaching the High Holy Days. And for us, it doesn't begin at Rosh Hashanah. Traditionally, the practice of preparing for Rosh Hashanah begins at the start of the month of Elul, the month before the high holidays, so that we get a 28-day run-up to Rosh Hashanah to start preparing, to be really present at the holidays as soon as they begin. And so Rabbi Goldstein is here to teach this morning to this idea of Elul, to this idea of spiritual preparation, so that we can do work before we get to Rosh Hashanah, so that truly Rosh Hashanah has the opportunity to enter a little differently. The music, the liturgy, the practices, the time of year, the moon, everything can work on us a little differently if we've tenderized our hearts and souls a little bit. So she's going to teach about how traditionally we do that. And Rabbi Goldstein comes to us with 25 years of teaching experience. So it's a beautiful thing to have experienced people choose to be with us. And she teaches a variety of online classes with an emphasis on spiritual resilience, cultivating the capacity for love and awe, meditation, and other spiritual practices. She also works one-on-one to support people in their spiritual journeys. She was educated at Brown University and Hebrew Union College. She's worked as an assistant rabbi, the director of Hillel of San Diego, and the executive director of IJS, the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. She's helped create and implement online learning programs, including a self-paced, highly produced kind of class. She's a fellow in the Jewish Pedagogy Circle at M2, a research program for master educators, and is currently working for certification in NARM, a therapeutic approach to healing developmental trauma. And she lives in New York City with her husband and foster son. So we welcome you, Rabbi Goldstein. We're so excited that you're with us. And all of you, I know that you'll join me in giving her a warm KI welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I have a fond place in my heart for Southern California, which is where I grew up. And actually, my grandmother lived for most of her adult life in Pacific Palisades. So I just have a great love for our community there, and I'm just so happy to be part of this particular community and to be sharing with you some thoughts about the High Holy Days. So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do just sort of like a quick check-in with one another, just so that we have a sense of where we are. And then I wanted to do a teaching particularly around Avinu Malkenu, which is this prayer that comes out throughout the High Holy Days, which is often really challenging for a number of reasons. So I wanted to go into it to see, how we might help use it to orient ourselves towards the holidays. And then I want to do like a short little writing exercise, and then some sharing, and then a closing. So that's sort of the trajectory for where, beautiful. So to check in, what I'd love to do is to take a couple of moments and in the chat, what is between 1 to 3 words about describing the way you are feeling about the fact that Rosh Hashanah is about 3 weeks away. So put in the chat 1 to 3 words about how are you feeling about the fact that Rosh Hashanah is quickly approaching. So we have anxious, excited, amazed, too quick, unprepared, calm, confused, excited, anticipatory, not ready, excited, awed, humble, questing, fresh, anew, oi, not ready. Yeah. I'm sure you all know the book that Alan Liu wrote to help us get ready, which is This is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared. So not ready seems just in line with how we are, even in the best of times. And now we have from Lori pandemic. What's actually going on? How are we going to deal with this? Calmly anticipating. Beautiful. Open and curious. Beautiful. So what I'd like to do is to hold all those different things. And I suspect that there are some words up there that you didn't type, but you can also relate to. And one of the things that I like is sort of seeing sort of this, how so many of us can feel similar things in different ways, and maybe just sort of checking in. And I want to invite I know that many of you who have your cameras off, it's for a really good reason, but there are times that I'm going to ask you to just turn it on for just a moment, because I think that it's really useful just to be able, and just lovely to be able to see each other's faces for just a moment, and to just sort of take in who's on this journey with us, who's on this journey through Elul into the High Holy Days, and to be able to just give each other a little bit of chizuk, a little bit of encouragement as we are getting ready through the beauty of each other's faces. So JH, I see you have your hand raised. Did you want to jump in and say something at this time? No? Okay. So you can always raise your hand if you want, or you can just raise your hand this way also if there's something that you want to say. So what I wanted to dive into today is Avinu Malkenu, and I'm going to put into the chat. You don't have to look at the text. This is just the text. It's a link in Sefaria, so if you want to look at it, you can. You will not need to look at it during this session, but just so that you have it. So I always feel like Avinu Malkenu is one of those high holiday prayers that poses an immediate problem, right? So Avinu Malkenu, which we know literally means our Father and our King, and that just slams the door shut for most of us right away. So even if some of us don't have an issue with the patriarchal language, a lot of us do, but even more so, how are we supposed to relate to God as our Father, maybe, but our King? What does that even mean? What feeling is supposed to come up when we go there? And so often we get stuck right there. And I'm always sort of fascinated at how different machzorim, different high holy day prayer books translate Avinu Malkenu. Our parent, our sovereign. Some people don't translate it at all. They just say Avinu Malkenu and just leave it at that, just to help us to be able to get into this prayer a little bit. And what I would like to do as we go into it is to take that question of what do we do with these metaphors, and I want to set them aside for just a few moments so that we can go into a little bit about the origins of this prayer. And by going into the origins, I think it can open up for us a little bit about how we can relate to this prayer in a way that can bring, I think, much deeper, greater meaning, not just for the High Holy Days, but for Elul and preparing for it. So where does this prayer come from? So at the first place that we have anything like Avinu Malkenu is from the Talmud, from the Babylonian Talmud, in a tractate called Ta'anit. And Ta'anit is a whole section of the Talmud that talks about what do we do when the rains don't come, which, as people living in California, I'm sure you can actually relate to, just sort of the visceral emotional sense of, oh my gosh, it's not raining, and the terror that brings up. What's happening in the fields, what's happening in the mountains, what's happening in our own drinking water. In the land of Israel back in the day, they didn't have the Sierra Mountains and the snow melt to help direct drinking water to the communities. So when there was a drought, what that meant is that people were going to die, that the crops were not going to grow. Because the crops depended on actual rainwater, and that there wasn't going to be a harvest, and there would be famine and people would die. So, and like in Southern California, the rainy season is between, say, October and March. And so when the rains didn't start coming in late March, they said, we need to start doing something about this. And back in the day, what the rabbis did is they did two things. They prayed and they fasted. And in fact, Ta'anit, the name of this tractate, means fasting. But it's really about fasting to bring the rain. So one year there was a drought, and they were praying and they were fasting, and nothing happened. The rain didn't come. And the great leader of that generation, whose name was Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, who was a complicated person, he got up there and he got up in front of everyone and he said a whole bunch of, I think, 24 different prayers to try and bring the rain, and nothing happened. And the people were totally panicked. And then Rabbi Eliezer's disciple was Rabbi Akiva. Some of you may have heard of Rabbi Akiva. He was a great rabbi in his own right. He got up and he said two lines. He said, Avinu Malkenu ein lanu melech ela ata. Our Father, our King, we have no king but you. Avinu Malkenu lema'ancha rachem aleinu. Avinu Malkenu, have compassion on us, have mercy on us for your sake. And those two lines did it, and the rain came. Just like that. So the Talmud then goes on to say, oh my gosh, the student did this in front of his great teacher, and what are the implications and why, and the whole thing. Okay, whatever. We don't have to go that direction. But what I think the point is that later on, when people started writing the prayers of the prayer book, of the Machzor, they had this sense of, oh yeah, this new year is actually a time of life and death, right? The beginning of the new year, we don't know what's going to happen in the next year. And there's this sense that everything that's going to happen in the next year has its seed, its origin in these high holy days. So we want to say something that evokes the urgency of this particular time of year, the vitalness of it, how everything sort of hangs in the balance. And so they went back to this story of the life and death situation of what's going to happen when the rains don't come, to Rabbi Akiva, and they started building on his formulation, Avinu Malkenu. And in fact, the second line that we have is exactly what he said, Ein lanu melech ela ata, you are our only ruler. Now, what's so interesting is different Jewish communities did this differently. So there is no set text. There's no one single text for Avinu Malkenu. It totally depends on where you are. So just as an example, the Yemenite community only has 27 lines of Avinu Malkenu. The Polish community, which a lot of our American prayer books are based on, has 44 lines in it. And the Salonika community in Greece, they hold the record with 53 different lines of Avinu Malkenu. So I think what we can learn from this right away is that Avinu Malkenu is something that we can adapt, because communities have done that all over the world. They've adapted it to bring different kinds of things. What, in this moment of life and death urgency, what do we yearn for? What do we need? What are we asking for? And different communities have different answers to that. So there are 4 basic categories that I see in Avinu Malkenu, which are kind of interesting. So the first is, please God, protect us from our enemies and from illness. So that's the first category, where we look around and we see our sort of physical fragility at the hands either of our enemies, of the people who hate us, or who would rather us get out of here, or sort of the physical sense, and we ask for protection. Where we feel weak, we ask for that physical protection. So that's the first section. The second section asks God for help with the process of repentance, which I think is really kind of interesting, because repentance is not like, repent and it should be easy to do. It's understood that repentance is hard. It's hard to come back to try and live our lives in alignment with how we want to be. It's so easy to get off track. And so we ask for help. Like we need support to be able to really live our lives to their full potential. So that's category number 2. Category number 3 is asking for blessings of all different kinds. Write us in the book of salvation. Write us in the book of prosperity. Write us in the book of salvation, of deliverance, of good health, of comfort. Write us for all kinds of blessings and all the different kinds of books that might be out there. Write us in the book of good deeds. Help us live our lives. Write us in those books. And then the last big section is asking God to please accept our prayer. And it sort of goes through to this point where it might not be for our sake. So accept our prayer for your sake, which is what Rabbi Akiva said at the beginning. For your sake, have compassion on us. Listen to our prayer for the sake of the martyrs who died for your sake, for all those who've gone through so much, for our ancestors who were so beloved by you. Accept our prayers. And then at the very end, we get to this one line that I feel like is the most iconic line of all of Avinu Malkenu. And this is the line that when we hear this, we know it's the High Holy Days. So I'm going to sing it. And I want to invite you to sing it also. Even if it's la la la, you know this, and just what I want to invite you to do is just like listen to the way that it feels in your body. Just like what does this evoke when you hear this? Okay. Da 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 da. Da 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 Avinu Malkenu, Avinu Malkenu, Avinu Malkenu, Chonenu va'anenu, ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. So I just want to pause there and maybe open it up a little bit to just maybe if anyone would like to share your experience of Avinu Malkenu before we sort of move into the next part, to the meaning of it, to the singing of it, to what it means for you. I would love to hear if anybody would like to share some of that.
It always makes me want to cry. It always starts the crying. It cracks me open in ways that I can't explain and don't really need to anymore.
Yeah.
I'm old enough that I don't need to, but it really is one of the few things that busts me wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Lynn.
For me, it always brings me back to when my family, we were part of the first 40 that started Stephen Weiss Temple here. And High Holidays with Rabbi Zeldin and Cantor Harvey Block, the way Harvey would sing this standing in front of the ark, and you could hear the weeping in his voice. So as a young girl, 11, 12, that's where I always go to.
Mm-hmm.
And especially now with my various experiences at different shows, but hearing Chaim sing it brings me back to that time.
Yeah, beautiful. There's something very ancient about the melody of it, like very ancient. And I don't think that anyone actually knows where the melody is from. It's not like a lot of the melodies that we think of are traditional. We can say, oh yeah, but that was written by so-and-so. We actually don't know who wrote Avinu Malkenu. It's that ancient. Yeah. Anyone else want to share an Avinu Malkenu experience or any comments or anything about anything that I've said so far? Yeah, Mimi.
Okay, so, as a cantor, standing in front of the ark, I especially at the end, because the gates are closing and that final Avinu Malkenu comes in there is just, a moment that not, that I'm speaking for me, and I feel it profoundly, and that maybe not that I can do it for other people, but I feel the strength of being there for community. And it's just like, and sometimes I just sit back and listen to people sing. I don't even sing it, to hear that powerful voices of community asking for compassion and forgiveness.
Yeah.
And answers.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. It is such a profound and sacred role to be the chazan, to hold that space in front of the community, to use your own heart, your own yearning to create the space, and then let everyone else's come up with you. It's a powerful, powerful experience. Yeah. And actually, I also grew up with Cantor Harvey Block at Temple Sinai in Glendale. So Lynn, I can remember that very, very clearly myself. Yeah. So anybody else want to share anything about Avinu Malkenu before we move on? Okay. So I want to look at that last line for a moment, because it's a really interesting line. This is another place where the translation sometimes can, I think for good motivation, but obfuscate the real power of the line. So that last line is Avinu Malkenu. Okay, so we're going to bracket how we want to talk about Avinu Malkenu for just a moment. Chonenu va'anenu. Chonenu is be gracious. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Va'anenu, and answer us. Ki ein banu ma'asim. So most prayer books will translate that as we are of little merit or something like that. But what it actually says is we have no deeds. We got nothing. We are coming with absolutely nothing. And I think, and then the last part, asei imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu, so deal with us with righteousness and with chesed, with loving kindness, and save us and rescue us. So I think the reason that the English often fudges that thing that we have nothing into we are of little merit is because it feels humiliating to say we've got nothing. And so we are of little merit. At least we've got some merit. We've got some leg to stand on to say, okay, God, please answer us in our broken state. But I actually think that understanding the Hebrew, the original Hebrew, is much more powerful. Because to say that we have nothing means that we do not have to earn God's love. We do not have to earn anything. It's that we can ask even if we have nothing to back us up. If we have, it's not a reward. Chonenu, be gracious to us. This is a phrase that sometimes gets swept into Christianity and owned by the Christians more than by us. Chonenu, grace, means a gift that is not earned. It's just freely given.
I translated Lisa, I translate it as gracify us.
Beautiful. I love that.
Gracify, like, because it's active, right?
Yes, it is. It is. And the sense of we're turning to you, not having to earn anything in return. We're just asking. And that is a very powerful thing. And I think particularly for us as Jews and for other oppressed peoples to be able to say, because part of the way that we have survived in the world is by justifying our existence, right? We're going to be really good. We're going to be really successful. We're going to make ourselves necessary. And then maybe you all won't hate us so much. You know, that is a very, very deep survival strategy of Jews. And that if we don't get it, it means that we didn't deserve it. And we turn into that place of shaming ourselves for not being able to get what it is that we actually need. Because these things that we listed before are things that we need. We need to be safe and protected. We need help in repenting. We need all kinds of blessings in our world. These are not superficial, stupid things. These are profound, important things. We need our prayers to be heard. So by saying we are asking for these things without earning it, without earning the right, we're just asking, is assuming a very, very important thing about God. And that is, and this is also going to sound very Christian, but I'm telling you, it's right here in our tradition, that we can depend on divine love. That divine love is accessible to us. And I want to take that back to Rabbi Akiva, actually, because Rabbi Akiva, the more you go into learning about him, the more I would say Rabbi Akiva is the rabbi of love. Everything about him was all about love. So Rabbi Akiva, for him, the most important line in the entire Torah was Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. That's the most important thing in the whole Torah, according to Rabbi Akiva. The holiest book in the Torah is the Song of Songs to Rabbi Akiva, which is the love poetry, right? And he saw that not just as expressing love between people, but also the relationship between God and Israel. And even his death. So some of you may know Rabbi Akiva died a horrific death. He was martyred by the Romans. And the story is that as he was basically being tortured to death, he was joyful, because he said that his whole life he had wondered, when it says, you shall love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, if he could really do that in his dying also. And what he found was that he could. This was his opportunity to fully surrender to loving God no matter what. And his disciples said that he died with the word echad, one, on his lips. So it's a heavy story. It's a disturbing story. But the point that I want to make with it is that Rabbi Akiva was really the rabbi who saw that the connection between us and God is in fact one of love. The other place that we see Avinu Malkenu, interestingly, in the prayer book, is there's only one other place that I know of that in the prayer book that we see it, which is in Ahava Rabbah, right? We say Avinu Malkenu in the prayer Ahava Rabbah, which is also Ahava Rabbah means great love. So there is a connection somehow with this phrase Avinu Malkenu and love. Okay, so I see some quizzical expressions, and I would love to hear some of your questions or thoughts or concerns. Yes, Marilyn.
Yeah, I just want to affirm what you said about unconditional love, which is a very interesting insight. And I think when you come right down to it psychologically, the model of unconditional love, not only with Hashem and us, but among each other, if you feel unconditionally loved, it so often is a springboard for doing tikkun olam and giving out to others. And
yes.
those who never feel unconditional love are the most withholding often and really can't show and act the sparks of the divine in them.
beautiful. That is absolutely correct. And I think part of what our tradition then says is so that, like, what does it mean? I just the other day, I was actually, I was in Los Angeles visiting my parents. I was driving to the airport, and on one of the signs over the freeway, it said, "Jesus loves you." And I was thinking, like, so I wonder what Christians mean by that. And then because I often talk about divinity as being an expression of love. And then what does that mean? Like, how do we connect into divine love? Like, what exactly does that mean? And I'm wondering if any of you have experienced that, and how you might think about that, how you might struggle with that or open that up.
I mean,
yeah,
I can say in meditation, that really is the touchstone for me.
Yeah. I think meditation is often a place where we can touch into that place of love. Yeah. Anyone have another experience with that? And if not, then I'll anybody else have an experience of that? Yeah, Carol?
I'm not sure if this is precisely, but I will say that I hadn't seen my oldest son for 27 months. And I'm going to get verklempt and cry talking about it. And when I went to get him at the airport like 6 weeks ago, I ran past where I was supposed to go, but they let me. It was 6 a.m. And we clung to each other. And we both sobbed. And we clung for minutes. And the emotion was so powerful and awesome and overwhelming. And it was COVID. It was love. And I remember thinking that the love between a mother and a child is eternal. It transcends everything. And it was so powerful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. In some ways, I think that when we say Avinu Malkenu, like that is the visceral experience that we're looking to open up. Which is difficult. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I just want to add that, for those of us who have struggled with parental love,
yes,
it also is a really healing, amazing way for me, anyway, to experience being loved in that parental sense that's not from parents.
Right.
And connecting to the longing for that is part of, I think, why I cry every time there's Avinu Malkenu going on, right? Is we don't often get in touch with the longing to be loved and the longing to be loved the way a parent who really loves their child loves them, and to connect to the vulnerability of that, and to connect with how much we want that we protect ourselves from the rest of the year.
Exactly. That is so beautiful. Because I would dare say that none of us have the parents are also people and are distracted and flawed in all the ways that we're distracted and flawed. And so we have those moments like Carol, if we're lucky, we have those moments like Carol is offering us, but no parent is always present in that kind of a way, right? Like we know that, unfortunately, and that does damage to us as children. We know that too. But this idea that the love that we connect into is a manifestation of God that we then channel through us to be able to extend to those that we love when we're in our best place. And that love is available to us, even if our parents were unable to give it to us the way that we needed it. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, actually, the Haftarah says, where Isaiah says to the Israelites, would a mother forget her own child? Well, she might, but I will never forget you. I will never leave you. And I think that is so honest. That is so honest. That love is there. It is available to us. If we can allow it to crack us open a little bit to that place of vulnerability that we protect ourselves from for a very good reason. It's much safer. Yeah, Rick, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, apologies for not figuring out on my iPhone how to show the video, but I just want to quickly share that as part of my Elul preparation process, I'm reading a book, John Lennon and the Jews. And the first whole section of the book is really on love. And it goes in rather deeply about different types of love and love in Jewish tradition as contrast to love in the Christian tradition. And without sharing any of my personal drash on love, I just think it's very interesting, and I'm glad that you've brought up this topic at this time.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So when we look then at Avinu, if we can sort of substitute in like this kind of love that we're looking for. So then what do we do with Malkenu? What do we do with Malkenu? And I think, well, first let me open it up. I'm curious if any of you have good strategies for dealing with Malkenu, our king.
I love Rabbi Jacob Staub's teaching about we can be inconsistent in our representations of the divine. And like, I don't love king or queen most of the time, but at the high holidays, like having this understanding that there are things beyond our control. There are things that are much bigger than we are, that king was the image for the most powerful thing there was in the ancient world. And what you're doing is saying, I get it, that there's something more powerful than me, thank God, that I can kind of turn it over, even when that's hard, that there's something much bigger than us. And it is to that we're reaching.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. So Malkenu is a sense of power and our own powerlessness in the face of the things that we need the most, which is another kind of vulnerability, right? So there's the sort of the emotional heart of vulnerability in Avinu, and then there's the sense of all the things that we need that we actually can't control, and having Malkenu be the receptacle of all of that. And I think now, like coming back into the second year of this pandemic, like if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that we know a lot less than we thought that we did, and we have a lot less power than we thought that we did, right? I mean, we can't figure out how to agree to how to end this, this plague that's killing thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So, and I think to be able to tap into that vulnerability also is scary for us, particularly as Jews. Because if we don't, there's sort of like, if I am not for me, who will be for me, right? There's sort of that mentality. And we know what happens when we don't have control. Like usually a lot of us end up getting killed, right? That's been our experience. So this is asking us to put that aside and to connect in to truly what is it that we need that we are powerless to provide for ourselves? What is it that we need that we are powerless to provide for ourselves? And can we ask for that, knowing that we don't have to earn it, that there is this love that is available that will support us just in doing the work to ask the question, what do I deeply need? Not what can I do for others? What do I deeply need? And that is a huge Elul question. Because when we can come into greater alignment with what we deeply need, not the world, although it may be the world, and not sort of anybody out there, but what do I personally need? Then I can start connecting into my own agency, my own greater alignment, my own ability to start connecting in to live my life the way that I want to live it, which is teshuvah, which then helps us be there for others, but it all comes back to a deep acknowledgement of what we personally need. So here's what I'd like to do. So I'd like to do sort of a short, well, first let me get before we move into the exercise, and any comments or questions or feedback or anything that anybody wants to say. Maybe someone who hasn't said anything so far, or someone who has said something before.
Well, I'll say
Yeah,
something.
Mark. Yeah.
As I listen to you, especially as I see you and Amy working together on this morning project, I'm sort of feeling a sense of humility. That is, that in order to enter this sort of holy space, it takes a lot of right-sizing, a lot of opening, a lot of capacity to feel what you can't see except what you know is blocking you. And that's sort of what I'm taking away from your teaching this morning.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mark. It's so interesting. I don't think that it's accidental. In the bio, Amy mentioned that I'm learning this therapeutic approach to childhood trauma. And the way that this particular methodology starts is, what do you want for yourself and what's getting in the way? Those are like the first two steps. And it is remarkably difficult for most people to be able to articulate what they want for themselves. It's very easy to say, I don't like this and this and this and this, but to be able to say, but what do you want for yourself? And then to explore what gets in the way is very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And that's exactly what this prayer is inviting us into. What do we most want for ourselves? Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like the Avinu Malkenu is a cry to God.
Yes.
And I always feel teary and a love of God. And it always starts the holiday for me, no matter where I am, no matter who I'm with that same, even if I'm not with my family, I feel the spirituality of welcoming love and welcoming what we have to offer as Jews.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying. I feel very similarly. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to lead us through just a very short meditative exercise that's going to lead into a short writing exercise. So to start out, I want to invite you to really come into the body. So really sensing into feet on the floor and the support of the chair or the cushion or whatever it is that's holding your body, giving yourself permission to just relax down and feel held by the floor or the chair or the cushion or the bed or whatever it is that's got your back, that's really holding you. Allowing the limbs to be heavy, the shoulders relaxed, the hands relaxed. Your eyes can be closed, or you can open them and have them softly focused either above or below the computer screen, whatever's more comfortable for you. Creating a little bit of space in the spine so that the breath can move as freely as possible. And then inviting the attention to explore where you feel aliveness in your body. So maybe that's in your breath, or maybe you can feel your heart beating, or maybe there's a tingling sensation or the experience of temperature on your skin. However you feel aliveness in your body. And when the attention wanders, that's fine. You can just invite it back with a very curious kind of feeling. What is this aliveness in me? What is it? What's it like? And now I'd like to invite you to imagine a source of profound love in your life. So it could be a person, it could be a pet, it could be a place. What is a source of profound love? It could be in your childhood, it could be now. And imagine that source of love is with you now. And just notice what that's like. And now I'd like to invite you to imagine a source of great power, great power. So it could be something in nature. It could be something human. It could be something not human. First thing that comes to mind, a source of tremendous power. And imagining being in the presence of that and just noticing what comes up in you as you imagine that. And then returning your attention to aliveness in the body. What is the sensation of being alive right now? And then when you're ready, coming out of the meditation, opening the eyes. And what I'd like to invite you to do before we move to the writing piece is just look at one face on the screen and send a little love and encouragement to that person. You don't need to know anything about them. We all need love and encouragement. And know that someone's probably sending it to you too. So now I'd like to offer the opportunity to write two different things. So the first is, this is the prompt. If you knew in your bones that you could ask for what you really, really need, what would you ask for? If you knew in your bones that you could ask for what you really, really need, what would you ask for? We'll just take a minute with that. Okay, and then prompt 2 is write down an intention to bring with you to the high holy days for Avinu Malkenu. So when you get to Avinu Malkenu, what do you want to experience? What is your hope? What is your intention for what Avinu Malkenu might offer you? Either based on our conversation today or based on your past history with it. What is your intention for Avinu Malkenu this year? What do you want to remind yourself of? Okay, so what I'd like to do next is to do a little bit of sharing in small groups. So here's the structure I'd like to suggest. First of all, sharing is completely optional. You do not have to share. No one will think less of you if you don't share. It's really entirely up to you. So if you don't want to share, you can just say pass and everyone will understand. So what I would like to invite you to share, if you are willing, is your intention for Avinu Malkenu. What do you want to remind yourself of when you come to Avinu Malkenu? Because that might be really inspiring to others and might help share their experience of Avinu Malkenu as well. So you can share a little bit about your intention and if you want, a little bit about what this prayer means to you. And what I would suggest in doing it is that each person talk for 2 minutes or so, up to 2 minutes. And everyone else just listens, and everybody gets a chance to go around. And then at the end, if you'd like to share a little bit more or ask someone a question, but what I would prefer that we not do is to give each other advice or say, I know the great book you should read about this, or I know the perfect solution for you. We're not going to do any of that. Like, we really just want to trust each person's ability to find their own way. So we're really commenting largely about our own experience and just bringing very kind, supportive attention to one another. And that's it. It's a kind of meditation even in and of itself. So we'll be in the groups for about 10 minutes. Rebecca, can you send us off?
I will.
Beautiful. See you back in about 10 minutes. Hello, hello. We're just going to wait for everyone else to get back, which should be very soon. I hope you had good conversations. I know it's harder to share in the big group than it is in the small group, but it's really nice to be able to hear new insight.
Hi. I think that this was a very moving experience to find out other people's pain, and that you never know what someone's going through from the surface.
Yeah.
And that it gives you a sense of more compassion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting. We all know that, right? We all know that, and we forget it so easily. And I think we forget it because, for several reasons, but I think often it's because of our own pain. It just feels so big that it shrinks our awareness of that really we're truly all in this together, and each in our own way. But when we can really remember each other's pain, it just opens the heart in a very powerful way.
Also, I think someone taught us that we tend to judge our insides by other people's outsides.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. I remember when I was a Hillel director, Rabbi Brona Shapiro used to have this like directions for what to do when we went to staff conference. And the first one was, don't compare your insides with somebody else's outsides. And because, you get in these situations and it looks like they have their life together, and they don't. They absolutely don't. That's why we have Avinu Malkenu. We all have these needs. We all have these profound needs. Yeah. Joyce, make sure you unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Sorry, forgot. Okay.
That's okay.
First, I want to say thank you to everyone who has been so kind and compassionate to me for over 2 years when I nearly died. And it's been amazing for everyone to be there from KI and all of what everybody has said, done, felt, and been for me. So and I never forget other people's pain. My pain has given me an ability to understand deeper other people's pain, besides the fact that I'm a therapist and I understand pain quite deeply. So,
yeah, thank you.
Toda Rabbah.
Thank you. It's such a beautiful tribute to this community, that people can be with one another when we are in places of pain. Not everyone has that kind of, I think sometimes there's a teaching that I really love. It's a Hasidic teaching by Menachem Nahum of Chernobyl, who is also known by his book, The Me'or Einayim. And he says that there's a saying in the Talmud that says that a righteous person can annul a decree from God, which is like, whoa, that's kind of big. A righteous person can annul a decree from God. So he says, well, how does that happen? It's like, well, the righteous person has such expanded consciousness that they can take the decree up to like sort of before it was born and dissolve it back into the cosmic soup. But if the decree is against the righteous person themselves, they can't do that, because their consciousness gets constricted. Like often when we are suffering, our consciousness constricts. And so in that case, the Me'or Einayim says, it's very important for the community to pray on behalf of that righteous person. That when they know that they are loved and taken care of, that helps them expand their consciousness, which then, when our consciousness is broader, our suffering lessens. And that's sort of a cycle, a positive feedback cycle. Go ahead.
How do you explain the people that were in the Holocaust when the holidays came and their outcry with Avinu Malkenu, and they prayed even though they were prisoners? How does that get explained?
I'm sure each person dealt with it differently. Some people probably stopped saying it. They just felt like they couldn't say it. And others felt like just articulating their need was an experience of dignity and humanity. That just to say, regardless of what the answer is, to articulate that I have needs that I cannot fulfill and that I trust that there is someone who is listening, just that moment itself is worth saying it. And there's probably a million other responses also. Because I think someone else used the word yearning in connection to this prayer. And I think that yearning can be its own answer. That the point of yearning is not for the object of our yearning to be provided. The point of yearning is that it's something that opens the heart. It cracks the heart open. And in that moment of the cracked open heart, we are profoundly, authentically who we are, which is, in those kinds of situations, they're trying to beat that out of us. So when we can access our own deep humanity through our yearning, our prayer is answered, regardless of what happens on the outside. Now, again, I don't know if I could actually do that because I'm like, as Rabbi Akiva said, like he didn't know that he could do it until he had to. And I don't think any of us know if we can do it until, God forbid, we have to. But, and people do have to. And, God willing, that won't be us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. It's an important question. Anything else that came up in the groups about intentions for Avinu Malkenu coming into the high holy days ahead of us? Something that you thought was interesting or you hadn't thought of or deepened your own intention?
Just how hard it is right now, right? No matter what our intention is, that it feels so hard. Like often it feels hard at the holidays because the holidays are about hard and doing the hard work of facing who we are and who we want to be and what we long for and all that stuff. But also right now, just how hard it feels.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. Which is, again, I think it's so helpful to know that we can start thinking about it now. So that, because I think, one of the things that we find is when something's hard, like we touch into it and then we move away. And then we touch into it and then we move away. And we touch into it and then we move away. So starting in Elul gives us the opportunity to start touching into it. And we don't have to stay with it the way that we do on Yom Kippur. And even then we touch into it and step away. Right? It's like this ratzov vashov. It's like rushing in and pulling back and rushing in and pulling back. And that's just the nature of, I would say, both the spiritual and the psychological process. We have to give ourselves a little space, a little comfort.
I also think it gives us a second chance to start over.
Yeah. Second, third, fourth, fifth, 600th. Yeah.
New beginnings.
Yeah. And that's also exciting because who knows how this year is going to be? Especially we're facing it now and we're facing it in the sense of it is so hard and we feel beaten down, many of us, but things can change. And the holidays are there to remind us things can change. We can ask for what we need and maybe we'll actually get it. That does happen sometimes. Amazing. Yeah, Rick, go ahead. Make sure you unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think one of the things I shared was what's hard for me is trying to come into something, to come into Shabbat, to come into the high holidays, how it's hard to go 80 miles an hour and stop on a dime.
Yeah.
So I was teaching Torah last week and I was doing some research because I was really, it was Elul corresponds with Virgo, the new moon. And I said, how am I going to, not make it hard to come to a stop? So I have this little shofar that was sitting somewhere on a shelf that I didn't. So now it's right in front of my computer. And even if I can't really blow it, I'm holding it. And the other thing I found is that traditionally Jews during this period of time would read from the Psalms.
That's right.
So when I was doing some research, I actually came across a Reconstructionist synagogue in Ann Arbor where there was a rabbi who did a translation. And if you allow me, there's just one short verse that I've been reading and that has really spoken to me.
Beautiful.
And it
Please.
says, I only ask one thing of you, just one thing, that I may be welcome in your house all the days of my life, to dwell in your innermost place, in the safety beneath the softness of your wings.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. I was actually thinking about concluding with that verse because there's a very well-known melody to it that many people know. And I actually wonder, Mimi, would you feel comfortable leading us in that? In Achat Sha'alti?
You want Achat Sha'alti or do you want Elul Hemanti? I guess it's Achat Sha'alti.
Achat Sha'alti.
Maybe. Let me think about. I'm much better with Lule, but than I am with Achat. But let me see what I can do.
Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful.
All right. Do you want it now? You let me know when.
Yeah. If you're, and I don't want to put you on the spot. So
it's okay. I just want to get the text up for me.
Yeah. Okay. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
So for those of you who are following along at home, this is Psalm 27, and this is the psalm that is traditionally associated with the month of Elul, and it's actually a really interesting psalm in that the first part of it says like, I have no fear. God is with me. Everything is great. Even if like there's a battle out there, I'm going to be fine because I know that you're going to take care of me. And then the second half of the psalm says, actually, where are you? And please don't hide your face from me. And like, if I could only believe that you're going to be there for me in the land of the living. And then it ends with this, be strong and of good courage and wait for God. So you might think that the psalm would work better the other way around, right? Starting off with the doubt and the tentativeness and then concluding with, yes, God is with me. But that's not the way that it goes, which I think is actually, that's also part of Elul. It's part of this, the spiritual journey is not a linear journey. We come close, we draw back, our hearts open, they get broken, they heal, they grow. Like that's the spiritual journey. So it's a beautiful psalm. And Mimi, whenever you're ready, would be
okay. And Rabbi Amy, if you'll back me up if I start going astray, it might be ending up in a partial harmony. But I'm starting. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai, ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai, ota avakesh. Shivti Beveit Adonai kol yamei chayai, lachazot benoam Adonai, ulevaker b'chechalo.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That was absolutely gorgeous. And Rick, will you read us the English one more time, just so that we remember it?
Well, I will. That same phrase verses that I read before.
Yep.
It is, I only ask one thing of you, just this one thing, that I may be welcome in your house all the days of my life, to dwell in your innermost place, beneath the softness of your wings.
So I think both that psalm and Avinu Malkenu really invite us into what is it that we wish? What is the one thing that we ask for? And to have the clarity and the courage to bring that with us to the High Holy Days, to use these days of Elul to sort through that, so that when we get to the synagogue or the Zoom screen or wherever it happens to be on Rosh Hashanah, that our hearts are open. And the holidays can do their magic. And I just really want to bless all of you with a year of health and of goodness and of love and of connection and of being together and of supporting one another, that it truly be a year of blessing for us and for the whole world. The world certainly needs it. And I also just want to briefly say, if any of you, I have a website, if any of you are interested in staying connected, it's RabbiLisaGoldstein.com. So there's I send out teachings occasionally and offer different classes, and I would be delighted to continue to be connected with you. So
Can you repeat the website?
Yes, it's RabbiLisaGoldstein.com.
From our hearts to yours, Rabbi Goldstein, Yesh Koach. May you continue to be strengthened in your teaching, in your learning, and may you be open to the love and regard and gratitude and respect of all of us who are fortunate enough today to be your students.
Thank you.